Welcome to By the Books, the podcast helping business owners navigate the complex world of business, payroll, tax, and bookkeeping. Now to your hosts, Lindsay Klein, President of Klein Bookkeeping, and Jeffrey Gonzalez, President of Payroll Guru.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. This is Lindsay Klein with Klein, honest, accurate bookkeeping performed on time, and your host of By the Books. I'm here hosting solo today. Unfortunately, my counterpart, Jeffrey Gonzalez, had a family emergency and had to go to New Mexico for a little while. But I have with me an awesome guest today. Right. Let's see if I can not butcher his name. I practiced a few times here. Let's see if I can do this.
Let's do it.
Tosin Omotayo.
Yes.
Now, I know I said that slowly,
you
but
got to say it fast and confident.
Okay. Tosin Omotayo.
Yes, there you go.
Okay. All right. I was so nervous about butchering that, but Tosin Omotayo is with me. He is the CEO and managing partner of Omotayo CPA.
That's right.
Okay. Did I say that confidently?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Thank you for having me.
So you and I met at a CPA study group lunch.
That's right.
And I remember being very impressed in that lunch talking with you. You were one of those people that immediately I was like, ooh, I need to get him on the podcast.
I talk too much, although I'm introverted.
But you had some great things to say. You're one of those people I can tell where when you speak, people need to listen. You've got good things to say.
Well,
so
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So I was very impressed. And it seemed like you're a little bit out of the box in the sense that, let's just say, generally speaking, a lot of CPAs tend to be on the conservative end. And it seems like you're more willing to take some risks and a little bit more on the risky side in a good way.
Hopefully.
Because I like that. I'm always looking for that. Someone that's, not just so risk adverse that they get into analysis paralysis, if you will. Definitely. So I observed that about you. Is that an accurate statement?
I think it is. And it's because what I tell a lot of new clients that come on board with us is that I'm not just a CPA. I'm also an entrepreneur. Me and my family, we've got real estate investments, different business investments, whether it's in IT, consulting, all kinds of different things, right? So I get to sit on both sides of the table, and therefore I not only am able to process things like a CPA, but also, twist that hat around and then put my entrepreneur hat on and really understand what is the client trying to accomplish? What are they trying to do? So therefore, we take that holistic view of, hey, you know what? Most CPAs are focused on historical work for the client, meaning last year's taxes, last week's payroll, last month's sales tax, name it and claim it, all right? Yeah. They're always focused on that, but no one's ever taking all that data and saying, hey, you know what? When you're trying to grow and scale your business, if you're trying to get financing, for example, banks are looking 2 to 3 years in the past. Well, how can I prepare myself today to be able to accomplish what I'm trying to do 2 to 3 years in the future?
Absolutely.
Right. So therefore, you have to kind of go against the grain when it comes to traditional thinking, such as, I'm sure we'll talk about some of these things, but one of my pet peeves is people just say write off. I'm like, well, if you write off everything under the sun and you don't show that you're making money, how are you going to get that financing to be able to either buy that building or get financing to buy equipment or whatever it is?
Right. So it may not be in your best interest to write everything off.
It usually isn't, especially if you're trying to scale.
Yeah,
right?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So we have to think about it differently, and sometimes not everybody's a good fit because of that, because you want to just do the traditional thinking rather than, let's game plan 2 to 3 years and also be proactive.
Right. Well, I had an episode I did a while back where I talk about the question I asked, I don't know, like maybe 20 CPAs, the same question just to see what is the plethora of answers that I would get.
Okay.
And so one thing that became glaringly obvious to me was there is definitely a spectrum in risk aversion, to highly conservative, versus, more risky, willing to take risks and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so that was very glaringly obvious to me when I kept asking the same question and getting all these different answers. And it caused me to realize, okay, that is one area of compatibility when you're looking for a tax planner, tax professional to help you. Making sure that your risk level is aligned seems to be really important, because if you're on one end saying, let's not put these deductions in because of lending, and then the person that's on the other side of the table from you has a different objective, then there's a mismatch, not compatible, if you will.
And always, when it comes to that risk level, we always have to manage our risks. There's nothing that you can do that will guarantee that the IRS will never audit you, or something will never happen. No, there isn't, right? But what kind of structure do you have? What kind of supporting documents do you have? Because sometimes what is another person's risk is really just documentation for another person. Yep. An example is people that, want to write off their miles on their cars, right? Well, if you have a mileage app and you're tracking every single business movement on that mileage track, you can write off 1 million miles if you want.
Right.
It's not risky to me. You've got the supporting documentation. But if you just walk in and say, I drove 1 million miles. Yeah, that is risky. So I do supporting document risky, while some people may do, just put it, name it and claim it risky.
Right, exactly. Right. And of course, us at Klein Bookkeeping, we are big on the documentation. Yeah. We are a huge...
And we'll tell you how to do it, right?
Absolutely.
We'll tell you the right way. Maybe there are other tools, like I said, maybe it's software that helps you get to that supporting document, rather than you having to do a manual log.
Well, one of the misnomers I often hear from business owners or others that will tell me, well, it's on my credit card statement, so that's all I need. And I've had people adamantly argue with me about this. And even though I've had guests on this podcast that are CPAs saying, I have been across the table from the IRS trying to get them to accept rent expense deductions, which were the same every month, being paid to the same vendor that owned the building, and they wouldn't accept it because we didn't have a receipt. So if you're thinking that you're safe just because it's cleared your credit card and on your credit card statement, you are not.
Here's an example I usually give to people. Let's say you go to Walmart, you spend it on your business credit card, and hey, IRS, I've got it on my credit card. It's Walmart.
Right.
Well, do they know if you went to buy bananas for the house, or you went to buy a printer, or you went to buy some wine, or what did you spend on inside Walmart? There's so many things in that place. Or let's even use, again, Amazon. Did you buy a gift for somebody, or did you buy, stamps or, envelopes for the office? We don't know. How do you expect them to know? Right. So that's where the supporting documentation comes. It's not that they don't take your bank statements, because yes, they do. I think something like force the banks to give you, to give them all of their bank statements, right? But they want to see why you went there and what you spent on. So that itemized supporting documentation is really important.
Absolutely. And even with restaurants, even with my business partner the other day, he was only keeping the credit card portion of their receipt that doesn't have anything itemized, and I was like, oh no, that's not the one you want to keep. You want to keep the one that lists everything out.
Yes, you signed that one, and it may look important, but the itemized one is important.
Is what they're going to actually care about. So you're absolutely right, and I'm on board with you 100%. But I love what you came in here with when I asked you the topic, is that good, essentially, if I could paraphrase, because I'm sure I won't say it exactly the way you did, but good tax planning and tax preparation starts with good accounting.
That's right. That's right.
And of course, we agree 100%. That's what we do.
That's the foundation. We have kind of a roadmap for onboarding new clients, because most of them require some kind of training in working with us, right? And it's all about that structure, right? So number one is, if you're going to do business, register a business. All right. If it's going to be a hobby, no problem, do hobby, right? But if you're saying, hey, I have a business, well, register a business,
right.
formalize it,
Right.
right? Then number 2, get a business bank account, get a business credit card. We're not saying carry credit card balances and all that stuff, but it's really because many people enjoy the benefits that come with certain credit cards, whether it's, cash rewards, travel rewards, and all that stuff. So I tell them, hey, you know what, don't feel like just because you have a business now, you can't use that credit card because Tosin's telling me, use only the business for business.
I will say that. I say that to clients all day. Keep it separated.
Definitely. So what I tell them is, most of these credit cards have a business version. Right. So if you enjoy that cash rewards, I'm sure that exact same credit card, or mostly sure, has a business version that you can use. Right. So get that and then keep enjoying the same benefits. Right. So that's why we highly recommend business credit cards. And also, it's also for cash flow purposes. If you're starting a new business, you might not have enough cash in there. So when you're at the store or trying to make that purchase and there's no money in the business checking, you will end up using your personal. All right. And then it's like, it's just one time. It's just this time, right? It's just this time. Well, just this time, just that time, that next time, no. All right, you're going to lose out. So therefore, it's important to have that business credit card, business checking account. The next up is going to be accounting. We have different levels of accounting that we'll train people or maybe recommend them to have, right? There are free tools out there that can help you with your accounting. It shouldn't be, even there's Excel, like it will show you, if you're an Excel pro and you love all those VLOOKUPs and pivot tables and all that, we'll show you how to do accounting in Excel if that's your jam, right? But there should not be any reason why a business owner should not, at least a small business owner that has a little bit of time, that they can't do their accounting on their own, right? That's level 1 of business.
I think that for most business owners that I talk to, there's 2 big issues. Number 1, it's overwhelming with all the many things that they already have to do for their business. It's one more thing that becomes overwhelming. Yes. And I can understand that completely. I don't even do my own bookkeeping. Like my team does the bookkeeping for my business. So I understand. Like if I had to do it myself, it would be a huge bottleneck because I have so many other
responsibilities
going on. So I can understand that. And then I think the other thing is if somebody doesn't have a background in it, it's overwhelming just to know where do I start or how do I do it, because it's something that they're not real familiar with most of the time. So it's sort of compiles on both of those, and then it's just something you want to avoid because it's overwhelming in a multitude of ways, and so it's just easier to avoid it. And that's when we get these calls from people that say, my tax extension is due next month and I need all of last year done.
and to me, when I hear that, yes, it's I get alarmed because it tells me that you were running your business without managing your business. Like how do you run your business without knowing your numbers, as they say, right? So therefore, it starts to make me think, are you building a job or are you building a business, right? If you're, this will take us on a whole nother tangent. Maybe we should save it. But, there's definitely a difference between building a job and building a business.
Yeah.
And those that want to build a business, making the time, if you can't afford for somebody else to do your accounting, is important. Or having that infrastructure there where your accounting is done, you're reviewing your financials, your performance month over month, year over year, quarter over quarter, whatever it is, so that you can at least know the strategic opportunities within your business and what you can do to scale it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I try to remind clients and other business owners I talk to that you're building an asset, or you could be.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not now, but you could be. It's not just, as you said, a job.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do turn it into that. And oftentimes it's kind of a hobby or a side hustle that then becomes a full-time job. Yeah. And people often don't think of it as being an asset, but it absolutely can be.
It can be.
It can be something that you could sell one day and profit from greatly.
I love that.
But not if it's not run well, not if you don't have good financials.
You can't sell a job.
Right, exactly.
You can't sell a job.
Right. And
somebody working anywhere for somebody, you can't say, hey, here's my job, pay me to buy it. No, but you can sell a business.
Absolutely.
Yes, you can sell that asset. Definitely.
I had a great advice from Kurt Coyne. He actually came on this podcast in the very beginning days of it. And this was when I had first quit my full-time job to do this full-time. He told me, start with the end in mind.
That's right.
And that was some of the best advice I've gotten in business to this day, because I really took that to heart and made a very concerted effort never to get myself in the weeds, because I realized if I'm doing all the work, I have a very low ceiling to grow.
Yeah.
So I am so glad he told me that.
We don't have enough bandwidth individually to be able to do everything.
Right.
Although many of us entrepreneurs will be wearing multiple hats.
Yes.
You know, from the person that's opening up the door in the morning to the person that's locking up at night to the person that's cleaning to the person that's selling to the person that's whatever. Right. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
So from a business owner's perspective that's maybe just getting started, or, you know, cash flow isn't yet just gangbusters, and they're looking at this to go, okay, I don't really know how to do this myself, but I can't really afford to hire someone to do this for me. What would you suggest for a person in that situation?
That's what we call our level 1 accounting, right? Because most business owners spend the same way most months, right? All the accounting that I've done, and I'm guessing you probably can say the same thing, most people spend the same way every single month. Let's say if you had a Adobe subscription, it's going to show up every single month. All right. Once I teach you how to code Adobe this month, when you see it next month,
you know how to do it.
You know how to do it, or you can set up a system that automatically posts it for you. Yeah. There are just a few of those transactions, and let's just generalize and say maybe 20% of your transactions are kind of different, or they're not codable easily. Maybe like a check. You wrote a check. Well, you got to open up the check and see what the check was for, and so on and so forth, before you know how to code it, right? So it's not something you can easily automate, right? So if you can do 80% well, the remaining 20% will help you figure it out. So we recommend, first things first, like we mentioned, spend only from your business checking account or credit card. Income and expenses need to flow through there.
Yeah, and that makes it so much easier, because then you know everything that's flowing through this account is a business expense, and everything flowing through your personal account is personal.
And you don't need to worry about it. Not that you have to juggle in between, okay, this is a personal expense, okay, let me put it to almost draw, let me do that. Like,
and by the way,
you don't need to be
for anyone listening that's in that situation, just know if you hire someone, now that person has to weed through both of your personal
and they will be
business.
Asking you.
Right. They'll be asking you and charging a lot more because it's taking so much time.
That's it. That's it. So that's why that structure is very important.
Yes.
That is the number one way to do your own accounting, is by simplifying what is being recorded. And using your bank as that ledger, that's kind of ledger of record, to then we take that and mimic that into an accounting system where we can now code it into the different categories, whether it's income, whether it's rent, whether it's supplies, and so on and so forth. Well, because we already have it on one ledger, it's easier for us to copy it into a next ledger. One of the level 1 tools that we have, like I mentioned, is Excel. Well, most banks, when you're in the screen that shows you all the transactions, the date, the description, and the amount, there's usually a download button there. You can download that and export all those transactions into Excel. Now, you don't need to be an Excel guru, but I'll give you quick tips, all right, that I can even say without writing, right? Create a column after you've exported it to Excel. Create a column, call it category, and then just go through each transaction. If you see rent, put rent. If you see income, put income. If you see supplies, put supplies. Go all the way down, and that's it. That's really how accounting is done, right? Now, all these software and everything like that, they'll make it a little bit fancy, because from there, they can take all of that, what you just did in Excel, and create a profit and loss and a balance sheet and a cash flow statement and a year-over-year comparison and so on and so forth. But basically, that's what they are doing. That's what they are all doing, right? It's taking each line in your bank statement and figuring out what do we categorize it as.
Yeah. Now, I will say, we'll put a little asterisk there. There are more complicated transactions that the average business owner would not be able to book themselves.
This is for startups, right?
This is basically if you need to communicate to somebody what your expenses were or your income, you know, having something to communicate that to them. But obviously, if you had, for example, a real estate sale, that's a complicated transaction.
There's a whole lot more to it.
Anything that's dealing with depreciation, obviously, buying or selling, that's a more complicated transaction.
And that's where you go to the different levels, right? You're not just going to be at level one anymore, and probably shouldn't handle it yourself at that point. If you have that much complexity, you know, make sure you sell enough to be able to afford a good bookkeeper or CPA, right?
Let me know if you need help with that, anyone.
That's right. Or if you're not really an Excel fan, there are also other free tools online that can do the same thing like a lot of these popular software have. They connect to your bank account. They'll pull it in there, and you just go in there and categorize each transaction. Now, again, if the transactions do get complicated, you will need a little bit of help on that. But majority of people probably won't have that complexity. It's just time to be able to complete it, right? And it's easier if you complete something monthly rather than at the end of the year. Or maybe even do it weekly if possible. Right.
Yeah, and I understand that. Like, I understand that intellectually it is better to do something a little bit each week, right, than wait. But I also understand the mentality that most of us have, that if it's not something we want to do, we're going to put it off as long as possible. So...
Well, that's where the question comes back in. Am I trying to build a business or am I trying to build a job? If I'm trying to build a business, it has to be built with a foundation that can scale, right? So those tasks, those important pieces in my business, you have to list them all out and who's going to help you accomplish it. And many people, whenever they are looking at their business and strategizing or creating some kind of business plan, they always forget accounting. Why do we always get forgotten about? Tell me. I don't know.
I think it's because we are all overhead and we never have good news.
Probably, right? We're not helping them make money, but we could, though. Right? With the right information, right? You can help a business owner grow, right?
Absolutely.
So I guess maybe let's say perspective. It's all about that perspective. Are you thinking of it as a cost or something that can, or part of your development team? Right.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, because let's say you are a contractor.
Well, I'll give an example of this. I'll give it an example. It's a bad example of what you don't want to have happen. Jeffrey and I went to lunch with a CPA that was telling us that he had a client that he had done a PPP loan for.
Okay.
And he had mentioned that he had closed and dissolved this company for them. And then he turned to us and said, "Hey, do you know how to do that forgiveness stuff? I need to look into that." And I think both of us just kind of had to sit back a little bit. And I was internally feeling so much anxiety for this client because once you close a business down, there's no forgiveness to be had.
I mean,
and then he tells us that this PPP loan was almost $1 million. Almost $1 million that they could not now ask forgiveness for because he had already shut the company down. And my heart just sank for this client. I felt personally just sick to my stomach over this. And so Jeffrey and I, we've actually told this story on one of our previous episodes. Like, this is a good reason why having good accounting professionals is so important, because a costly mistake like that can cost you literally, in his case, $1 million. And then on the good side, I've heard stories of CPAs talking about how they had a client come to them and they looked at their previous returns and said, "Hey, listen, if we changed a few things around here, you could save, $100,000 on the taxes that you paid." So it can go both ways there. But the point being that good accounting professionals actually will save you money. But here's a question for you. For people that maybe know that, but they don't know accounting enough to know what questions to ask to know if this person actually knows their stuff, how would they go about knowing whether a professional is good or not?
I was going to ask you that question. Because I'm biased, right? I'm a CPA. You know, I would expect, I mean, I have a high threshold for anyone that calls themselves a CPA. You've got to be awesome. All right. We may be a little overworked, you know, at deadlines. We don't want to talk to anybody, you know, but, you know, you should be doing a good job because of, you know, that standing that you have in the public.
Well, so I've gotten to know some things because as bookkeepers, there's things that we look for on our end that make our job easier. Yeah. And so there are things that I will ask CPAs to see if it's someone we might recommend, because we don't do any taxes. So we need good tax professionals to recommend for our clients. So I'm always scouting for that. And one of the things that I ask that I have found to be not only a good question in terms of is this going to be helpful to us, but also I've found it's a good measure of how thorough are they. And so the question I will ask is, do you always include a balance sheet in every business tax return, or only when it's required?
I love it. I love it. I love it. You should ask some of my staff on that.
I was going to ask, what do you do on your team?
We are definitely going to be adding every single balance sheet, but we might not show it.
So you may not put it in the tax return. And if I had to guess...
No, it's in our tax return software, but it won't produce on the final PDF. Right.
So if I had to guess, your reason for that is that it's not always advantageous for you to show that for lending purposes or other reasons?
Yeah, for other reasons, correct. But we are going to make sure that our balance sheet, our M1, our M2s, our basis is always going to match and add up.
Gotcha. So you always have it. It just may not show up on the tax return.
It may not show up.
Okay.
But one thing, if I'm reviewing a tax return that one of my staff prepared, you know, because we have tax managers that kind of handle that whole process. But if I'm to look at it, those are my first go-tos. Like, where's your balance sheet? Where's your M1? Where's your M2? Where's your basis? Where's your financial statements? Do they all match? And I don't really need to look at the details too much, because if the ending totals match, I mean, this is me as a reviewer and someone that has about 5 minutes to review your tax return. I just want to make sure that everything matches up.
Yes.
Right. It should be from the financial statements.
Absolutely.
Actually, sorry. We start from the prior year tax returns to the beginning numbers on your tax return to the financial, to the current year financials. I love this. To the ending.
You are blessing my heart right now. Sounds like you're a good one to send business to.
Oh, Lord. We're a little tough. We're a little tough because we don't take shoe boxes of receipts from anybody.
I understand.
Right.
I understand that.
And that's why I call myself the chief consultant or chief educator, right? Because a lot of times we've got to break down all the bad habits that people have learned, or maybe that they've gotten away with, right? Because there's what's technically right and what I've gotten away with. And a lot of times you hear more of the people that speak loud about what I've gotten away with, right? So we want to make sure that they come in and they understand our process. Yes, we're going to be different. Yes, our goal is not to save you on taxes. I think that's something new I've started saying. We don't save anybody on taxes. Taxes is it's just a collation of all the events that happen throughout the year, right? That's all it is, really. I'm not trying to save you on money. It's a result. Taxes are a result of your income. However, throughout the year, there may be strategies that we can implement based on your business to be able to create business expenses. I hate that word, tax deductions. So to create business expenses that will now reduce your net. And then when it flows into, whether it's a corporate or, you know, it's a pass-through and it flows to your personal and the tax is calculated, it calculates at a lower amount because your net is lower than what it originally would have been. So we're not saving you on taxes. We're just structuring your business so that we can capture properly all the things that happened. And instead of you spending, you bought a van for your company, but it's under your personal name, you're paying for it under your personal account, so therefore You're forgetting to write it off, but you use it 100% of the time to do deliveries for your business. Why isn't it on your business accounting? You know, that's why we're talking about this topic. Now you'll say, oh, Tosin, find me some expenses, find me some tax savings, save me on taxes. Well, you missed out on this because you didn't structure your business properly. It's not me saving you on taxes. You need to be structured up front so that you can fully maximize the built-in advantages of being a business owner.
Well, and that shines a spotlight on the difference between tax preparation and tax planning. Because that planning portion is forward-looking, whereas the preparation is backward-looking.
Yes.
And once the year is over, there's a limited amount of things you can do at that point.
Yeah.
So that planning, do you plan in your, because this is another good question for people to ask to determine, is this the right professional? Do they plan? Do you guys in your firm, do you plan with your clients prior to the year ending?
We plan with the people that can afford to.
Gotcha.
Because a lot of people, if you're coming to us in September to do your taxes or to actually finalize your taxes, we're still dealing with the prior year 3/4 of the way in this year.
Right.
So what are we planning for? Like now we're still firefighting.
Right.
So I still don't call that planning. Those that we want to plan for, the right type of people that have the planning mindset, it's done at least on a quarterly basis. So if we're talking about, oh, let's think about tax planning in the fourth quarter, we've missed 3/4 of things that you should have structured properly so that we can capture it, so that by the end of the year we don't have to be running around and say, oh, where'd you spend all this money for? No.
But having that mentality that you prefer, I assume, to do it that way, rather than the CPA that really doesn't even want to talk to you, that's obviously a good sign.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something people could ask. And even in general, customer service, which is certainly something that at our bookkeeping firm we're concerned with, because we've had a plethora of clients that have complained to us about their tax professionals in that they can't get a hold of them, they won't answer the phone, they won't answer emails. So that's another question.
Yeah, so instead of dodging the question like I did, let me give you a few points that I look for in a good CPA.
Okay.
Number one is going to be, it doesn't mean that you're good or not, right? But to me, my first question is, do you have a team?
Or are you a solopreneur?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with either, but bandwidth is going to be an issue.
Absolutely.
No one can work. I mean, yes, a lot of CPAs put in many, many hours over the course of the year, right? But there's only so much you can do efficiently with those hours. Right. And if you're not getting called back, if you're not getting texted back on time or on a timely basis or at all, right, probably because they're a little overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Right. Doesn't mean that they are bad. It's more that they are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Right. And therefore, having a team is the first step into being able to take on a little bit more. So if you're looking for a CPA, I wouldn't look for just price. I would look for somebody that has a little bit of availability.
Yes, absolutely. And maybe even drilling down with them on what are your future plans? Are you going to continue to grow? Are you closing in on retirement? What are the next few years going to look like for you?
Correct. It's like that mindset of a doctor, right? You don't want to be changing your primary care doctor every single year, right? You want somebody that knows you, knows that about that backache that you had 2 years ago, about the broken knee that you had, and so on and so forth. You want that kind of history with them. So, but yes, we know we have medical records that can pass from one person to the next, but they just see documents. They don't have context. If you're switching doctors from year to year to year to year, they don't have that context or that relationship with you. Right. So
I agree.
They might not know that you just love to run, but yes, you do have knee pain. But so instead of telling me not to run, maybe it's get me better shoes, right? You need to buy some more expensive shoes, right? If you love to run, so that it can support your knee, or maybe run on a treadmill, right? But if I came to a doctor with just documents saying that this person always has knee pain, that had knee surgery, and so on, yeah, you need to stop running. That's what I would recommend because that's what I easily see without having that contact.
Right.
Same thing as a CPA, right? You want to be able to have that long-term relationship with them. You tell them where you're planning to go 3 to 5 years. And I always, every new client, at least if I remember, I tell them, hey, as I'm helping you build, you two look out for me. I'm trying to scale. I have people.
Yeah.
All right. My basic, and don't tell them this. All right. I'm looking straight into the camera. Don't tell my staff this. All right. But my base rule is if you can do it 80% as good as I can do it, I mean, like, I just got to let it go. All right. I'm just going to have a heart attack if I try and expect 100% from every single person. So I've got to give a little bit of wiggle room, but don't tell them. All right. So I tell the new clients, I'm like, hey, look out because this is my rule. And, you know, none of us are perfect. Yes, I've got MBAs, CPAs, EAs that are on staff with us, and they're going to be handling you because I'm just chief consultant and chief educator here. Right. But if they don't do a good job, let me know. We'll work it out. All right.
Yeah.
We'll fix them. Nobody's perfect. All right. So first things first is going to be, do they have that bandwidth to take you on in the way you want to be taken care of? I always have all these thoughts come into my head, and I call it the dilemma of scale. I know we're just on point number 1. All right. But it's the dilemma of scale. I'll just give a little bit about it. It's where, you know, you as a business owner, you want to grow your business, but then you come to a business owner, to another business owner, whether it's a doctor, whether it's an attorney, whether it's a CPA, a professional, but you don't want them to scale. Or at the back of your mind because you expect them to do everything for you. So how can one person scale if you expect to talk to that same person every single time? So you're stopping somebody else from scaling, but you want them to help you scale? There's a dilemma there, you know? So
that makes sense.
You've got to train these clients that are coming on board. This is now for the CPAs and bookkeepers, tax preparers out there that this is what we are planning on doing. You may get me, you may not get me, but everybody here is working off of the same playbook. All right.
Yeah,
this is what we expect.
This is where good systems come into place.
That's right. This is what we expect, you know, and then you can throw in that joke. I'm handing it off to everybody, you know, tell them about the 80% rule and all that stuff. All right. But that's number 1. Number 2 is their mindset when it comes to taxes. What does taxes mean to them?
That's good.
Again, I kind of always put it all out there, you know, like, so that's why I said taxes to me, number 1, is not to save money. Taxes is a reconciliation for the year. If you got a W-2, you're an employee, hey, you pay taxes on the gross of what you make. It just flows all the way down. Maybe you have some itemized deductions or other income that may increase it or decrease it, but it just nets out. It's easy. You should be doing it on TurboTax. Don't come to me. If you come to me, no problem. We'll take you on, but it's going to be a fee. All right. If you're a business owner, proper structure up front, accounting up front. How are you spending it all? What are you capturing? Making sure you kind of play with these rules about, you know, what is a business expense, you know, what is a reasonable business expense or business activity and so on and so forth. There's some rules and there's some what do you call it? There's some allowances in there for you to err one way or the other because the IRS, not all IRS rules are just black and white. Right. There are all these reasonable if and maybe and but, you know, and so on. Right. So what is that person's perspective on the taxes? Because your tax outcome is going to be definitely dependent on the way the other person who's going to prepare your taxes thinks about your taxes. If you're on the same page that, hey, we want to write off everything under the sun, go and look for another child, do anything, no problem. All right. They'll help you with that. If that's what you want to accomplish. Right. Because this is, our tax system is more of an honor-based system. Yeah. Until you get audited. And it's not so honorable. All right. So you get to report what you want. And you're technically supposed to be doing it right the first time. So talk to them.
So I
this is
had
what I'm
someone
trying to
tell me that
accomplish.
their CPA will give them options, basically kind of a spectrum of, okay, the most conservative thing we could do here is this. This is a little bit more risky. The IRS may or may not allow this. If you choose that option, just have some money saved away in case the IRS decides they're not allowing this. Have you ever done that strategy, or what do you think about that?
I would say it a little bit backwards. I would say this is the supporting documentation they expect. Create it and have it. We're not auditors. We're not meant to audit every single document that comes into us. However, if you want to push the boundary, I might be able to detect it. I may not be able to detect it, but like I mentioned, we don't take boxes of receipts.
Right.
I mean, we'll keep a scanned copy of your documents that you provide to us that we put into your system, that we put into the tax return, but we can't take all of the supporting documents. We're not going to take every single line item receipts that you have in your accounting, right? So you have to keep a lot of stuff yourself for 7 years or so. So we'll tell them, you want to do that? Well, this is what's expected if you were to get audited. So make sure you have that, update your accounting and, put in journal entries and so on and so forth. And then, resubmit the financials and we'll see it, right? Especially if you're a business owner, if there are changes that are made to the tax return, it has to go back to the accounting because the accounting has to match the tax returns. There's no, oops, I forgot to update it 2 years ago. No. All right. They're going to match by the time we finalize your tax returns. So you're going to go back and update it and then provide me a financial statement, which is all you provided me in the first place. Right? It's just you forgot to include whatever.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. Do you have a receipt for that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What is there anything else that people should take into account whenever they're looking for a tax professional?
I mean, I was trying to think of more things, but those two things are what I was thinking about. But it's very hard for entrepreneurs to know who's a good CPA or not
it is.
up front.
Absolutely.
Right? You can ask as many questions as you want. My running joke is even the person that had the worst grade in med school is still a doctor as long as they pass their board exam. Same thing as a CPA. If you got a 75 on all sections of the CPA exam, you're still a CPA. Do you have to be smart to be a CPA? No. Do you have to be a CPA to be smart? No. But you can't really tell who's good and not good up front.
Well, some things I've found that people don't realize is that there are a lot of CPAs out there that know nothing about taxes.
Yeah.
Or very little
We
anyway.
have clients that are CPAs, actually.
So there you go. And I spoke to a guy the other day at a networking meeting. He's like, my wife's a CPA, but she refuses to do our taxes. And she tries to tell me that she doesn't even know how to do them. And I don't believe her. And I was
auditors.
like, actually? I was like, there's a lot of CPAs that don't keep up with taxes.
There are many different, specialties that you can go into as an accountant, right? So you can be an auditor, you can be a corporate accountant, you can be
CFO,
whatever it is. You can go into finance. Different options, right? So it's not like just because you're a CPA you must know taxes.
Right.
No.
And only one portion, if I'm not mistaken, of the CPA exam is tax. Is that correct?
They don't even call it tax. They call it regulation.
Oh, gotcha.
All right.
Okay.
So there you go.
So it could be even more wide spectrum than that.
Yeah,
okay.
There are other things. I mean, I took my CPA exam a long time ago. But there's more things in there that I believe than just taxes.
Yeah. So it's a wide berth, and so just because somebody has that CPA next to their name does not necessarily mean they keep up with tax regulations.
Well, I guess let me throw in a number 3 then. Get a referral.
That's good.
Yes, a lot of people have good SEO. If you Google people, you'll find somebody.
Right.
But usually you get a recommendation.
Yeah, that's good advice.
That's where most business comes from, most business owners. It's going to be word of mouth and referrals.
I actually had a CPA tell me he does not take anyone that is not from a referral. And he said if somebody is Googling CPA near me, that is not a client I want. You know, if they're not savvy enough to find another colleague or business owner that has a good referral, then that's not a client I want. I was like, that's an interesting perspective.
It is, because, you know, finance is that sensitive topic. Whether family finance, business finance, or accounting, if you want to add that in there, it's a sensitive topic. And not everybody is comfortable discussing it with, you know, your network. Or you have gone beyond your network in the things that you are doing. So the referrals that they can give you, you already have vetted them and know them to be found wanting, right? So I think life is a little bit more nuanced than that. So we should be a little bit flexible on that, because, yeah, especially that part about, what if I started a business? I'm, you know, with a group of people, we just graduated college. Nobody has ever filed a tax return before, beyond the summer gigs, W-2s that we always got, you know, and I jump into a business and I'm making, you know, right out of college, $1 million, and everybody else is getting a job for XYZ W-2. I can't ask them for a CPA.
Right.
Like, we all came up, you know, working at fast food and so on and so forth. Like, how would they have the right? Well, maybe friends of friends, you know, network of networks, 6 degrees of separation. They can find somebody, but you may not just be able to understand how to even introduce that.
Right.
My business is doing all this. I need a CPA.
That makes sense.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah.
You offer a new perspective on that.
Always,
That's good.
always,
I like that.
Always. We try.
I love it. And it seems like what I'm most impressed with what you've said today, it seems like you have good systems in place with your staff. Like, even good people and good systems. So I really like that. And
I mean, shout out to the team. Like, to work for us, you got to buy into the dream, really. That's what I call it. You know, you just got to buy into the dream. There's no way you'll be able to survive if you don't buy into the dream and take on that individual responsibility, right? Because these are clients that I'm openly telling that I'm not doing your work, right? So if you want to come here, you're going to have to trust somebody else. Yes, you like the way I speak. Yes, I closed you, and so on and so forth, compared to somebody else closing you and getting the work in. But then you never talk to me again, unless you needed some consulting, and you can talk to me again. So they have to now be able to take that baton that I've passed and be able to take care of it, right? We're of the mindset of taking care of the golden goose itself, right? I know it's golden eggs, but I call it the golden goose, right? Because we want to take care of the client that produces the eggs. The eggs might as well, they can be whatever to me. It's okay, right? But the goose itself is golden to us. And we understand how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. We also understand how hard it is to get a new client in the door, right? There are many people that do what we do. We're not special. Right. We try and say that we have some things that differentiate us from the next person and all that stuff. But, I mean, you throw a rock out there, there are like 20 CPAs you'll hit. All right. And that's just CPAs. What about bookkeepers and tax preparers and tax shops and so on and so forth? There's so many options out there for everyone. Same thing as entrepreneurs. Yes, I'd love for everybody to come to us, but we really can't take everybody out there.
Right.
So we understand how hard it is to be able to get that next customer that understands our structure, that understands our processes, and pretty much wants to work with us.
Well, and I would just tag on to that's probably a good thing to look at too when someone's looking for a tax professional, is how much is the tax professional vetting you?
Yeah.
Because if they're not asking any questions or really trying to make sure it's a good fit, then they're probably the kind of professional that's just accepting anyone and everyone and not conceptualizing that not everyone's going to be a good fit.
Yeah.
So it says a lot when someone actually takes the time to vet and say, okay, are we compatible?
Definitely, especially by giving you their structure and processes, because then that's the only time you know if you can fall in line with that.
Right.
You know, it's almost like an assembly plant, right? You don't want a CPA that's just every day doing something new for every single different client, right? Because then, again, going back to it, you can't scale.
Right.
Right. So
Exactly.
there needs to be clean processes that people are following, that person's also following from the start to the finish.
Absolutely.
And rinse
I love that.
and repeat. Rinse and repeat. All right.
Speak accounting to me more. I like that.
Now,
That's
I
great.
always say we try our best to
Yeah.
accomplish those things. You know,
Absolutely.
this is like, pie in the sky. Like, this is our North Star of what we're trying
Yeah.
to execute every single day. When we step on the plate, this is what we're doing. You know, this is the home run that we want to hit.
Right.
But sometimes we hit singles.
Oh, yeah. We all make mistakes. We're all
Or
human.
we strike out,
Yeah.
It's
and-
okay.
Yep. I
It's okay.
totally
We
understand
learn
that.
and we grow. Every business owner has that same story. No matter what business you're in, you'll have those days that you do a great job. You'll have those customers and clients and patients, that you'll do a great job for it. And you'll have some that probably didn't work out so well, and they'll leave a bad review and, just mess up your 5-star ratings and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
They'll come. All right. So, I always say, let's all operate with some grace.
Yes.
You as the entrepreneur, us as the CPAs and bookkeepers and tax preparers.
Absolutely.
Let's all operate with some grace.
So let's say there's an audience member that's hearing this right now and loving what you have to say. How would they know if they're a good fit for your firm specifically? And how would they find you?
So how they would find us, they can go to our website
Okay.
or just Google us. And you'll be able to book an appointment and, have that first.
Spell your name out for those that just are listening and may not know how to Google you.
Yes. Yes. So I'm a Nigerian background. Grew up in Nigeria. I grew up kind of all over the place. But last name is Omotayo. Omotayo. All right. OmotayoCPA.com. And that's our website. You can find us and love to talk to you. You can call. We'll schedule a meeting. We'll do a 15-minute kick the tire type of call to figure out, what are you looking for? What are we looking for? Right.
And what kind of things are you looking for in that meeting?
I'm looking for mindset. Right. Because that next client has to add value to us, and we have to be able to add value to them, right? We are fortunate enough not to have to chase every single job that comes out there, right? So therefore, we have to be a little bit careful about bringing on the next, because I understand the limitations or the bandwidth limitations of our team. Yes, we're growing and scaling, but just because we get one new client doesn't mean we need to get a whole nother CPA. All right. Us entrepreneurs will know that cost is kind of hefty. So you have to manage, who's this next person that's going to come on? What are they bringing on? Do they really need us? So I actually do recommend that many people that come to us that are doing their own taxes, we probably aren't a good fit for you unless your situation completely changed. I had a new lead call, and he said, me and my family, we've done our taxes for years. We bought one real estate property, and we need a CPA. I said, I don't think you do, right? Because one, you're going to get a sticker shock on going from, they were using TurboTax, from using TurboTax to using a CPA, right? There's a massive sticker shock. But next, I think what you need more of, because you're able to do your taxes, right? You've done your taxes. You guys have W-2 jobs. You have, stocks and so on and so forth. That's once you get into stocks, reporting your stocks and all, it gets a little bit complicated, and you can do it on your own. You can easily do your own rental property one in the same tax software if you have a good system. If you have a good process, because technically you're just going to be copying and pasting from your accounting system.
Right.
So I told them, you know what? I think what you need is for us to do what we call a structure consulting. Let's structure how you're going to operate the business, how you're going to record the business income and expenses, what kind of software you're going to use. We'll train you on that software. We'll hold your hand until you're comfortable with that. And then at the end of the year, you can keep going. You can keep going. Now, throughout the year, whenever you need us, we're there for you. Collate all your answers. Maybe it's once a month. Maybe it's once a quarter. Maybe it's once every 6 months. You need us to kind of, hey, I'm looking at that next property. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. They're asking for this. They're asking for that. Let's have a meeting. We'll strategize together. We'll do this consulting. And then you go off and run and you do your own, right? So I'm a firm believer on people can do it on their own to start off.
I don't think I've ever heard a CPA say that.
I push people out the door. Or at least I try and delay them, right?
Until they need it.
Until you need it. Because what some people fail to realize is we're all consumers, right? There is a value for working with certain types of people or buying certain types of products.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'll say it. All right? Nobody's looking at me, at least directly, right? If you're coming to us, it's like you're coming into, let's just call it a Mercedes dealership. All right, that's what you're walking into, right? It doesn't mean that hey, if you want to pay for Mercedes, no problem, go ahead, that's fine, right? But sometimes, if you don't know how to drive yet, should you be driving a Mercedes as your first car? Hey, everybody has their opinion. Yeah. Right? If you want to, no problem. Right? It's just you're gonna have to pay for that Mercedes. For it,
yeah.
All right.
No, that makes sense.
I used to say Lamborghini dealership, but I had to bring us down a little bit. Because we're not quite there yet, right? So it's very important that they understand the value that they're going to be paying for. It's going to be a sticker shock. We're going to be expensive than most other CPA firms that think they're our size out there, right? So we have to make sure that you understand that this is the value that we're providing. Right. And if you think it's not valuable, you should be doing it on your own.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Not just getting somebody who's going to charge you the fee that you want to pay and then they do it. And maybe you'll end up complaining because, hey, you pay for what you get. Right. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been very enlightening and it's been great to get to know you better.
Yes.
And we probably have some bookkeeping clients that we can send your way that are looking for tax professionals.
We would love that. We would love that.
It would be great to continue working together.
Hey, this has been tremendously fun. I always like talking and, sharing some of the knowledge that we have.
Of course, I'm fabulous.
Right? No, this has been wonderful, and I know that we'll definitely work together because, when we first met, we kind of gelled on some of the things that we were developing for tax preparers and CPA firms and bookkeepers, to be able to manage their practice, and talking about those things because I'm a big believer that most times software can help at least cover up for some of the gaps that we face when we're trying to manage our practice. So we're trying to build something to cover that. So that was awesome. Great. So definitely, I know we'll be working together. I appreciate you for having us.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. Yes. You've been awesome to talk to. Like I said at the beginning, you're one of those people that when you start talking, it's time to listen.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Yes. And we'll be doing more of this.
Absolutely.
We also have our own show, which we'll be posting this on too.
Oh, very good. Right, do you want to promote it?
Well, it's called Business Gist. All right.
Nice.
And it's a video vlog that we post on YouTube. And I just share knowledge or have interviews with different entrepreneurs and business owners, just about different business topics or ideas that, I get to meet and face every single day, really.
That's fantastic.
Just share the knowledge and let's see where we can take it from there.
Can people find that on your website?
Good question. We're revamping. We need to revamp that website, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it needs to be on there, but it's Business Gist, Gist is GIST, and you can find us on Google.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you today.
Thank you very much.
I'm Lindsay Klein with Klein Honest, Accurate Bookkeeping performed on time, and your host of By the Books. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Until next time, have a great one, everyone.
By the Books is presented by Klein Bookkeeping and Payroll Guru. For more information, visit Klein.com or payrollguru.com. The information provided on these websites and podcasts does not and is not intended to constitute legal or accounting advice. Instead, all information, content, and materials available are for general information purposes only. Information provided by Klein and Payroll Guru may not constitute the most up-to-date legal or other information. Listeners should contact their attorney or accounting professional to obtain advice with respect to any particular legal or accounting matter, and should refrain from acting on the basis of this information without first seeking legal advice from counsel in the relevant jurisdiction. Only your individual attorney or accountant can provide assurances that the information contained herein and your interpretation of it is applicable or appropriate to your particular situation.